Okay. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Vanessa Natale, Chair of the Open Government Advisory Group. The time is 1:02 p.m. and I'm calling this fantastic meeting of the Open Government Advisory Group to order. Originally, and due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we started meeting virtually, but I think this is also very helpful because we get everyone. And so that's another reason why we're meeting it. So everybody can do it during their lunch break or whatever. So we're actually meeting virtually on the Teams platform. And this meeting is hopefully being conducted in adherence to the District of Columbia Open Meetings Act, and it's being recorded. So first order of business is to get a quorum. I'll call your name. Can you please say present? If you're a designee of someone, please just state your name for the record. Okay, so Vanessa Natale, Chair, and I'm from the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel. I'm present. Nikel Allen.
Present.
Thank you, Nikel. Cherie DeBerry.
Present.
Thank you, Cherie. Renako Alsop.
Present.
Thank you, Renako. Bob Becker.
I'm here.
Thanks, Bob. Helen McClure. I think she was out. Okay. And then we have, let me see. Oh, Van Freeman. Did I see? No. Van, okay. Shelley Vanneman.
Present.
Thanks, Shelley. Julia Hudson.
Present.
Thank you, Julia. Stephen Miller.
Present.
Thank you, Stephen. Helder Gill, I know he's always ignoring me. I'm going to get him on one of these, just so you guys know. I'm just going to show up one day and make him get on it. Catherine Pettit. And I saw Earl Rodriguez.
Present.
Hi, Earl, thanks.
Hi.
Erica Satterley.
Present.
Fantastic. The smarter and better Vanessa Carrero.
Present. Thanks, Vanessa.
Kyle Spears.
Present.
Oh, hi, Kyle. Good to see you. David Sang, who's very
Present.
patient. All right, thanks. And how about Zach Walter? We still have a lot. What's the number, Julia?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
This is like a math problem. I just want to make sure. Okay, great. There are
But Madam
13.
Chair, I'm sorry, before we
Okay.
proceed, do we have anyone else that's on the call
Oh,
whose
yeah,
name
thank
we
you.
didn't call?
Anyone from the public want to come in and say hi? We know that. Okay, I'm also just everyone, let me get on to, we need to.
You're frozen.
Okay, let's see.
Stop with that.
Okay.
Oh, who's frozen?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Your
frozen.
video was frozen for a moment.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Am I non-frozen now?
Yes.
Okay. The next matter of business is the adoption of our agenda, which is posted on our website. Does anybody want to make any changes?
We also posted it in the, we also sent that around again yesterday, so our members
To the
received a
gang.
copy. Mm-hmm.
Okay, hearing none, I move that we adopt the agenda by unanimous consent. Any objections? Thank you, everyone. Hearing none, the motion passes and the agenda is adopted.
No, we needed another member to make the motion. Would someone like to make the motion?
I think Bob.
I'll
should.
make the motion.
Did Bob?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob, because we missed you the last time. Okay. Okay, so public witnesses, which I asked, I don't think we have any other public besides our regular public, Bob, and the gang. I think at this point we have the introduction of the members. I don't see any newer members, or is there anyone we should introduce that may I'm trying to look now. Bob, we haven't seen you, but then Renaco's here. Let me see. I think, oh, you know what I wanted to say? The other Vanessa Carrero. Can everybody just see you even though you're eating so they can just say hi? Because you're very important and fancy.
Oh my goodness, that's you're
Come
putting
on.
me on the spot.
Come on.
Let
That's
me
the-
move my food to the side.
Oh no, just say hi to everyone.
All right. Hi, everyone. Vanessa Carrero. I am Betsy's deputy, and I stopped myself from saying new deputy because it's been over a year. But
Okay.
if any of you worked with Karuna, my predecessor, I have Karuna's job. So if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call.
Thanks, Vanessa. We also call this now Vanessa's job. So we're, we'll put that on the next agenda.
On the
too.
next agenda. Great.
Yeah. And Vanessa, I'm sure has to deal with a lot of FOIA stuff in her world as well.
We sure do.
Very helpful. So thank you, Vanessa.
Great.
So
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. It also looks like we
Continue.
didn't recognize Sienna. I see that you're on the line as well as Emma. So we have 15
I
folks
didn't
on
see.
now. Yeah.
Oh, Emma. Hi, Emma. Emma Hurler.
Hi, how are
Hey,
you?
Emma. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Who else? Because I can't, it's not popping up on my.
Yeah. Sienna is
Hi,
on.
Julia.
How are
this
you?
is Kiana, and sorry, I pivoted
Kiana.
on, but I'm present as well.
All right.
Oh,
Good to
thank
see you.
you. No, yeah, we just want to say thanks and whatever. Okay, so I guess we're done. We're all said hi. Okay, so I'm really happy and I want to thank everyone. This is like 2 straight meetings where we had a quorum. And I know it shouldn't be a super big deal, but I do value all your time and putting up with this. And so I want to kind of keep the ball rolling on what we're supposed to do in this group. So have some advice with regarding open government. So I reached division and I wanted to get started on like maybe some of the differences with the federal FOIA and DC FOIA, and maybe if anyone wanted to talk about what they thought maybe we can adjust or we should make similar to the feds or something else, and we'll start taking notes and then I can present something for the next meeting and then we can keep adding advice on what we think. And then I'm hoping we'll have a deliverable to the mayor, maybe by, I would say October. I mean, that would be great depending on everyone's summer schedule. And so I want to thank Renaco for helping us out here. And so Renaco, can you just talk about stuff and open government and FOIA and what you do, just so everybody can know where you kind of come in this movie.
Sure. So I am the FOIA officer for the Office of the Attorney General, and I've been here since the fall of 2018. Prior to that, I was an attorney advisor at DCRA and also served as their acting FOIA officer. And I've had some experience in the General Counsel's office at EOM as well, serving as I was the deputy general counsel, but I handled FOIA appeals, which you're all probably familiar with that process. And as Vanessa said, we've also internally talked about ways we could improve FOIA, make it more efficient, make it more fair for the FOIA officers. And I think our last go with this was right before the pandemic, and then it kind of just sort of got tossed to the wayside. So I think this is a really important issue, especially as requesters start asking more for electronic records, emails and text messages and that kind of thing. So I think the first thing, for FOIA officers is we'd love to have more time. And when you look at the federal FOIA statute, there are allotted 20 business days to respond to FOIA requests, whereas DC is 15 business days. Although DC does give you the option to request to invoke a 10-day extension, once your 10 days are up, your requester can file an appeal. And with the federal FOIA statute, they actually allow the requester and the agency to sort of come to a meeting of minds and decide on a different due date. It could be, who knows, 3 months, 4 months in advance. And, we don't have that option as
I had no idea about that. That is something.
Right. And so even, and while if the requester and the feds agree on a deadline, then obviously they don't have the right to just go to court and sue. And so I would love to see a little more flexibility for the district FOIA officers, and for us to get that 20, maybe more. I mean, I think FOIA has changed so much. Before we were just dealing with paper records. Now we're dealing with a lot of email requests. And, if you're dealing with Octo, you have to wait a couple of weeks to get those results back. And so sometimes your 20 days are up. 20 days are up by the time you even get your email records. So that's one thing I would love to see happen. Also, under the FOIA statute, the federal FOIA statute, the federal agency only has to respond to your request, meaning saying, yes, you can have these records or no, but you're not required to actually give the requester the records. Where in the district, you have to give a response and the records at the same time within that time period. So that's an additional pressure that these district FOIA officers have that I feel that federal agency FOIA officers don't have. Another issue I observed when I was just comparing the two was that for one of our law enforcement exemptions under I think it's 2583, one of the exemptions states that the FOIA statute, our FOIA statute, exempts records or information compiled by law enforcement, compiled for law enforcement purposes, to the extent that it would endanger the life or physical safety of law enforcement personnel. In comparison, the federal equivalent exempts such records to the extent that production of such records could reasonably be expected to endanger the life or physical safety of any individual. And so, as you can see, their exemption is broader. So it covers, potentially witnesses, victims, relatives, or people who testified, whereas the district's exemption is more narrow. And I had one or two more.
Just so everybody knows, then we'll go through each one and then everyone can give what they think, responses. This is very helpful. And I'll go.
Let me just pull up this.
It's all right. Take your time.
Actually. Oh, another one is that the DC statute, under the DC FOIA statute, there are 3 circumstances which allow an agency to invoke the 10-day extension. So the search for voluminous records, I'm just paraphrasing here, the need to consult with another agency or 2 or more components of one agency. And we have our own body-worn camera statute now. But under the federal FOIA statute, an agency is allowed to invoke an extension if there is a need to search for and collect the requested records from field facilities or other establishments that are separate from the agency processing the request. I think we've kind of fiddled with this statute since the pandemic began, but I think that's a good approach to have built in that additional time for files and records that we have off-site. And I think, and Nikhil can correct me on this one if I'm wrong, but I don't think that our district statute specifically addresses the tolling period, meaning that if we need additional information from a requester on a FOIA request, I know under the federal statute, they are allowed to toll the processing if they need additional information. I know in our trainings that's what OGAG advises us. I don't know if that's specifically in one of the DC FOIA statute or the regs. So those are my main ones. There's some more sort of fiddly ones. There are differences, but I don't think it's, people who process FOIA that it really impacts our job. I'm just touching on the ones that I think are the ones that are most difficult to, most challenging to deal with.
Pranaka, this was really good, and it gives a view of what the government FOIA officers, their actual real life and what they're doing and how certain things beyond their control kind of holds things up. And I like the efficiency. So let's start with your first topic, which is the original time. The feds have 20 business days, which, I guess that's a little more than a month sometimes, and ours is 15. What does everybody think about that? I mean, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it probably helps. But I know for the public, they have an expectation that is important and that we have to keep in mind. Oh, Bob, we can't hear you.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Now can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. First, that's a two-part thing, because I think part of the what you said was that a requester and a FOIA officer can't negotiate at a different time. So first of all, I don't see anything in the DC statute that prevents that from happening as long as they agree on, I can get you this stuff by such and such a date. If the person then agrees to that and then goes and files an appeal, then the response is, we had an agreement and we're trying to meet the agreement. So I don't see anything in the DC statute that prevents that agreement. I wouldn't quarrel with adding 5 days to the time limit. I would quarrel, I think, with your last one, which is having to consult with or having to get things from off-site. This isn't the federal government that may have things 3,000, 5,000 miles away. I mean, it's got to get something from an office in Hawaii or somewhere else. That's a different story. This is the DC government. It's a city. Okay. We shouldn't have big delays for agencies to talk to each other. So that's, I think there may be situations, rarely when that's necessary, to delay for that, but that can be handled within the process. But certainly, as I said, I have no problem with adding 5 days and making the deadline the same as the federal deadline. But I think, and I don't see a problem with negotiating a different time between the parties. And I would rather see people talk to each other.
Yeah.
The FOIA officers and the requesters talk to each other and come to some agreement, whether it's narrowing the scope or agreeing on a different time because of the variables involved. That's fine with me.
I think the key for us from EOMOGC's perspective is we do that informally, and we often negotiate waves of production or narrowing of productions. But we don't have, I mean, our opinion currently is that even if we do negotiate an extended deadline and everyone's on board with that, no one files an appeal, for purposes of FOIA reporting that we do, if that negotiated deadline is after this statutory deadline, which of course it is, there's no point in otherwise, the public sees that in our reporting as a late FOIA. So
well, why can't you just create another category that says we met the deadline that was agreed on?
Yeah, I mean, that's where whether or not we need a statutory change.
Yeah,
to account for that.
And that is, see, that's present, that's like the current act, and I understand that's currently the practice here. And I really appreciate what Bob has said about it. Like, it makes sense. At least everybody's talking. And, you know, most of our problems are when no one responds at an agency, for the most part, I would say. But that perhaps, and I'll draft it up, that might be one of our, you know, points that we advise the mayor on amending or adding or editing the statute with regard to that. And I think that's good. And then just one thing regarding the off-site kind of if it's documents, I do know that from 2 prior agencies I was at, a lot of the storage, I think it went to Suitland. I don't even know if everybody still goes to Suitland because I know that was packed up, but we used to try and say, oh, we need a file from this lawsuit or whatever. And it would always be difficult to get the people over there to do it. Now, that's not the public's problem, but maybe if everybody just keeps in touch with everyone, like, hey, here's the email I sent to the guy at Suitland, or here's what I said, you know, it's something like that, because it's crazy, but I do know they're somewhere, these documents. And then former federal people that are kind of still federal employees, their stuff is somewhere. I don't know how far, I mean, that probably goes back too far. But there is stuff off-site. But if Bob volunteers to help drive out with coffee, we'll get it.
But you know, the other thing is that's sort of a legacy problem, because as time goes by, more and more records are electronic. So it's an issue, but it should be a sort of fading issue. It's going to fade slowly. It's going to fade very slowly, but it's a fading issue.
Yeah, I
It should
agree.
be a fading issue.
Having worked at DCRA, we had a lot of records that were at Suitland too, Vanessa. And
Is
then
that where it
some were-
was? Okay, I don't know why
Yeah,
I saw.
it's Suitland and somewhere else in DC, but it took forever to get those records back on site. So it was really beyond our control. And I agree with Bob. I love being able to negotiate a different timeline with the requester. However, despite what they agree on the phone, they can still file suit. And I love it to be in the statute. So just more protection for the FOIA officers who are relying on the goodwill of everyone to cooperate.
Paper the record, send an email saying we
Yeah.
agree. We had a conversation today. You agreed to this time. If you have a different opinion about what we said, then let me know.
Yeah,
By
I think that
in
makes
writing.
sense. Yeah, we could do a template. Hopefully we'd get them to amend the statute because I think that's very practical.
Yeah.
And like I said, it just keeps the conversation going and, oh, is this what you really need? And this is what, or how about you need this? I think that is really good. And I think it's very reasonable. What does everyone, let's see. So the law enforcement exception, and I remember I was kind of used this when I was at OAG. Can you, so Renako, do you mean like, what kind of records are these, like with everyone's names and addresses and we can't just redact, or is it even just the information that there is a witness or there is something that could be dangerous for that person?
I think it's all of that. And, there's 3 or 4 subsections under the law enforcement statute. And I just think that if we're going to extend that extend that protection to law enforcement officers, then we could just do a catch-all like the feds and include any person. The federal standard for this is not very high. It says it does not require that a particular kind of individual will be at risk of harm. Any individual will do. So if any person might be at risk based upon the release of this information, I think that we owe that to people who want them to participate in the judicial process to at least extend them some protection. Now, like I said in the paper, that if you balance out the privacy interests and the public's interest, the privacy interests will probably usually win. But it's also nice to have this expressly in the statute just for that additional layer of protection.
I guess I'm going to push back on that one because I think this administration's and the MPD's concept of privacy in the context of law enforcement records is way overblown, and clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy has been interpreted as allowing MPD to redact all names in all circumstances. And I don't believe that that's what the federal case law supports under the federal statute, and I don't think it should in the district. And quite frankly, I think that there should be a real limit on who we decide might conceivably be in danger, and therefore their names shouldn't be disclosed. So I think I'm going to push back. I'm pretty sure the Open Government Coalition is going to push back pretty hard on that, because I think that the privacy exemptions, both of them, are used way too broadly to essentially remove names wherever they appear. And that includes, I look at body camera video where MPD, when it discloses a piece of video under FOIA or to the public generally, even blurs the faces of uniformed officers and their name tags, and bleeps out what they say that's of any substance. And that's how broadly they are interpreting the privacy exemption. And I have done a comparison. I got some videos from Baltimore PD. This was the Open Government Coalition has a summit every year during Sunshine Week in March, and we were about to do a program on how Baltimore and DC handle body cam videos. So I had several pieces of body cam video from DC where they blocked out all license plate numbers, faces of everybody, including all the officers. And then I went to the Baltimore Police website and online requested videos of all the camera videos from a particular incident. And within a month, I had an unredacted video. This incident happened on a street during rush hour in South End of Baltimore. I got the complete video with all the faces, everybody standing around, because it happened in public. There was no privacy interest. It was on a public street in the middle of the day. And if MPD had done that, they would have taken months to redact. They would have claimed that I had to pay for hundreds of hours of time to do that. And it's just beyond me. So I think we're going to have a real concern about anything.
I think so. I think we can get to a happy medium with that, because, you know, if we have any advice. But I mean, I see that, because who's going to be in danger is a little different than everybody in the public. But Kyle, you had something?
Hey, Vanessa.
Hey.
Yeah, so I'm not in DC. I am in, the federal government. So my perspective is maybe a little bit different, but since it was brought up, I just wanted to say, as we're making recommendations, Department of Justice's official policy changed in March of 2022. Garland issued a directive that, the official policy is a presumption of openness. So unless specifically protected or otherwise specifically stated as something that is not to be disclosed, the data should be made available to the public in FOIA. Which is a pretty big change. But as it relates to policy recommendations, there's a library's worth of recommendations from GAO and other entities that have made recommendations on how the federal government can improve, including centralizing FOIA reporting to one office. For the federal government, it would be GSA, or some of those sort of streamlining of things. But I just wanted to also say there's a lot to say about the police. Probably should stick on that topic. But I also wanted to say about the timeline shifting from 15 to 20 days. Probably doesn't really matter. But if in terms of impact on the public, but I think Bob is right. DC is a city size. The federal government is processing in 20 days across the entire country. And so it's just if the city, if the district is not able to process it within 15 days, there's probably other bottlenecks that we should address before actually maybe saying that the solution is just increasing the time allotted. But yeah, so that's all I was going to say is Department of Justice's recommendation on police and at least from the federal side is presumption of openness.
Wow, that is very helpful, and I didn't hear that. It's not like, what am I going to hear? But that's something we also have to kind of look at. And is that policy on the DOJ website, I assume?
It is, yes.
Okay, all right. So maybe we'll pass that around, or I'll look it up. I was wondering, and I thought this actually was something you could do, that you can toll the clock when you're waiting for someone to get back to you, like the requester. Now, the tolling doesn't come, on our side, but the requester. I think that is only fair. I mean, it is, or is that seen as like a delay tactic by, maybe an agency? I mean, I think that's entirely reasonable. Am I wrong? Bob, anybody?
I don't see a problem with that. I don't know that is there a formal process in the federal system? I don't know that there is. I think it's one of those things. You get a request. The request is very broad. You say, okay, if you want all of this information, it's going to take me months to do it. But if we can figure out a narrower way to reduce the scope of this request, then we can do it much faster. And then you wait for a response. But you would, I hope, anticipate getting a response fairly quickly. And if you don't get a response fairly quickly, then you send an email and say, why haven't you responded to me? I mean, it takes a little management. I think this can be negotiated. whether the statute should say we can toll under a specific circumstance. You might want to do it in regs in some way.
Yeah.
But the regs are problematic for a lot of reasons anyway, so we're gonna have, that's a completely separate issue.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, never mind that. Okay, no, that's, yeah.
We're gonna get there, but we're gonna get there.
I'm sure you'll get us there, Bob. Erica, what was going?
Yeah, I was just gonna, adding to what Bob just said, typically what we'll do, we did it when I was EOM's FOIA officer and we do it at DEMPED now, is if there is a request that, comes in incredibly broad and we're waiting for, a response, sometimes we send the email and then we just never hear from them again. What we usually do is include in that initial, hey, this is how long it would take us. Are there ways we could narrow it? We usually include a please respond within 30 business days. Like, we do try to give them a decent amount of time to do it, and say, if we don't hear from you within that amount of time, we'll consider your request closed. 99% of the time we hear back from the requester within a day or two, but there are, kind of the oddball requests where they submit a very broad one, we reach back out and then never hear from them again. But that also, then gives us kind of an internal deadline. We can make a note of it, and it's like, well, if we don't hear from them again in 30 days, send them a letter saying that it's closed out, and then if they want it, they have to resubmit. So that's just kind of how we've managed that aspect of it.
And then how would you close out one, Erica? Because I don't know this. Like, if you respond to someone like, hey, blah, 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 30 days, and they don't respond, how does that get closed out? Like, in reporting, which is another thing we'll have to talk about one of these days.
Yeah. I think in FOIA Express, I forget what it's exactly called, but it's, it might be lack of response or failure to respond or something, but there is a specific category that you can, or insufficient information or something like that. Like, these are the requests where we do this are truly the ones where, we have no idea what you're talking about, or we really need some additional information to be able to figure out what it is you need. But there is a designation in FOIA Express that allows you to close it out that way. I just don't remember what it is.
No, that was very good. Thank you so much, Erica. David, what's going on?
Thanks, Vanessa. I just wanted to echo what Erica said. We have the same experience in the OCFO. 99% of the requests and the discussions with the requesters are collaborative and very cooperative. And as Bob indicated, there are times when there is a negotiation about the time frame. We do have a very few, a small number of outliers where they make a request and then we don't hear from them. And so we do circle back with them to give them a time frame. It's usually it's an additional 30 days if we don't hear from them. And then yes, we do close it out.
And you send a letter saying
yes, we do. Yeah.
What were you going to say, Renata?
I was saying that's interesting that you guys are giving 30 days. I give far less time. I usually give like a week, 5 days, 7 days to get back to me on a request to see if they want to amend it. Maybe I should be more generous. But back to, I think someone had mentioned from the feds that they thought that, DC asking for 20 might be a bit of a reach, given that we're just a city and they are the feds. But I think keep in mind that our octo results often don't come back for, if I'm searching for emails, we don't usually get a response until about 14 days later, if that, and usually it's between 2 and 3 weeks. So if we're already pushing close to past our extension deadline by the time I even get the emails, and if I'm looking at thousands of emails, I have no time to process. Outside, obviously I can negotiate a different timeline with the requester, but as someone else mentioned, it still would show up late on the reporting form, like you said, which is another issue, probably should be, changed and amended, in a lot of ways.
And regarding the Octo, when you were saying that, Octo's doing also the cases in litigation where they
Everything.
have to,
I know.
Pull all those. I wonder, I don't know, Stephen, if there's like a number, just so we can have an idea of like what a huge universe it is, because I'm pretty sure it's huge. And then and I think that's, as they come in, and then maybe litigation is prioritized because there's court deadlines. there's maybe that would help if we had certain the policies or whatever, and we could post them so people would understand. But I know Octo, that's a lot they have to do.
I will say Octo is very responsive. Like I've been had my back against the wall and I needed something that day and they will go and get it to me like whatever time of night. And I know they're busy, but I think people just need to build in that time in their head that, look, I don't even have the records to review until 14, 20 days from your request. So.
Stephen,
Again,
on a separate thing, excuse me, Bob, just one thing. Do we need like a mini training or something in our next meeting with regard to how people put how to do the search terms? Because, or it's like, are people, because I think in my experience, like a million years ago, I did search terms when I was a general counsel of an agency, and they were either I did them wrong or put the wrong something or I did a bunch of things wrong, and it took a while for it to get back. And then that kind of held up the time. I mean, maybe a mini training or like a primer we can put on the website for the agency requesters. How to, like, any tips on the Octo search, or was that only me? I mean, that could be true.
That's happened to me too.
I mean, I can't speak to how many people it happens to, so I'm not that plugged into the operations of email search request. ESR is what I'm going to call it.
Okay, fancy.
Yeah. But it's just easier. It's easier for me. Now I'm talking a lot more than I thought. But
come on.
So with ESR, I'm more than happy to work something out where we can definitely engage with the end users of that. What I would say, the end users of email search requests themselves are within the government. It's not a public tool.
Right.
It supports the public tool, which is FOIA Express. And just to explain it for the public members, email search request is it's where we get our litigation requests, our investigation requests, and our FOIA requests to search through the e-discovery documents, which is primarily email in the district. So that's why it's email search request, ESR. We can definitely talk that through. I know one of our intents in the latest version of ESR, which I say latest, it's probably 4 years old at this point, was to make it easier to get those search terms correct. It was to standardize it through a user interface. We can certainly look to engage with all of you to try to understand where those holes are. Yeah.
Thank you.
We want to make it as easy as possible.
Sorry to make you talk. I mean, it was just me from before, and maybe it was like the quotes, or I didn't put comma or and it's like a Westlaw search or the other kind of search. Erica, what do you think?
That we run into is just when we here at DemPed, for example, get a DemPed wide search. We want any email that anyone in DemPed sent regarding the McMillan project. We'll use that as an example. A favorite of so many people.
Yeah, that's everywhere. Yeah,
exactly. The problem being, that's fine. We can certainly do that specific. You want any email from anyone in DemPed that mentions McMillan. The problem is all DemPed employees have EOM email addresses, as do everyone at OCA and everyone in actual EOM, everyone at DME and DMHHS, everyone in MOLC. We all have EOM addresses. So Octo can't do a DemPed specific email search. They can do an all EOM search, and then DemPed has to then go through and weed out everybody who's not actually a DemPed employee, which can then add significant amount of time if, we're weeding through, especially if it's a lot of years, maybe employees have left, you're left trying to figure out, oh, did this person work at DemPed? Were they somewhere else? Which is, sometimes easier said than done. And I don't know that there's like a solution for that, but I did want to throw that out there as another challenge that,
I had no idea about that. Yeah.
I think one of the problems is you have created a monster, because Octo is preserving every email that was ever created by a district employee going back to the beginning of email. They are not applying any record retention rules to those emails. So the universe of emails is ridiculously large. And one of the problems is maybe it's time to have a real policy on retention of emails. There are some things you got to continue forever, and the secretary has rules about what you got to keep forever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of stuff in that system that probably shouldn't be there anymore.
I mean, Bob, I think that's great, but if the government makes that kind of suggestion, they'll be like, oh.
I
no,
know
they're
it's a
taking-
heresy for me to make.
Yeah, no.
It's a
I was-
heresy for
I
me
was
to
gonna say,
say
I'm
that.
glad we're recording
I would like
this.
it to make that clear that Bob said that. But wait,
Fritz Muhlhauser testified about that, I believe, in Robert White's committee.
okay. I mean,
Okay,
that is
when Octo had its performance oversight here.
I don't think that's I just to go back to the monster that we created, Frankenstein's monster in the book was a feeling and thinking and sensitive monster. I'd like everybody to know because I was a literature major. But if your
English,
gang of open,
Mhm.
your people want to make that, I would love to put something in because if we do that, they'll be like, oh, now they're cutting it out. But there has to be, it has to stop. Like, we can't just go back to the beginning of time and, how can we be more efficient and responsive? Is that our goal, or is it just to keep it going?
Well, I think the secretary's got rules on retention.
Yeah, they do. The secretary has rules on retention, and each agency has rules on retention. Like, I know OAG has a retention policy too. I think though, we're just erring on the side of disclosure. And if Octo gives it to me and I see it's, usually they have a time frame, and they're usually not asking for 20 years of emails. So it's usually within the time frame that I would, so 7 or 8 years. But I think even that may be beyond what OAG's retention policy is. So.
And there's also a move to digitize records. Bob, I don't know where it is in the process, and this was probably pre-pandemic, but there was an effort through the Office of the Secretary to roll out for different agencies timeframes for actually digitizing records. So that is something I know that was on the horizon at one point.
Thank you, Julia. Stephen, what say you?
Kyle has sorry.
Kyle too?
Kyle has a comment in the chat that says the federal email retention policy is 10 years.
Oh. Thank
So
you,
that's-
Kyle.
Yeah, that's more or less what I was going to say. We operate off of a mayor's order, I believe, from it was 2008 with our unlimited email retention. And it is, we are set up to do that. It is, I'll say it's an exercise in budget futility. Year over year, it's always going to grow. And this is, it is something that has been a concern of ours. But, we are enabled to do it, and we're going to continue to do it. And I think one of the other things to really add to it is, you talked about the additional digitization of records that also adds to that same exact backlog. So it is something that it is, it's top of mind for Octo to be able to speed up that capability, but at the same time, we also keep adding more into it. So it's a very interesting thing. I would love if Bob came to our next budget hearing to talk about how.
Yeah, Bob, yeah.
As I said, I think Fritz did.
Yeah, I remember Fritz. It was a budget or performance. He did bring it up. Yeah.
But it's nice to know that everybody kind of understands that. And if it's something that, after we come across with our general kind of advice we'll give to the mayor about what we think, maybe we can go on to something like that. I mean, I say maybe that's controversial, but also practical and reasonable. And we'll just keep in mind, just blame Bob. And then, because I'm not going to say it. Yeah, Stephen.
Okay, I'm turning off my camera now.
You can run, but you can't hide, Bob.
Bob, yeah, we know you're there, buddy. Yeah.
I wanted to comment on one other thing that Erica brought up, which was the difficulty in differentiating between a lot of the what I'll call Wilson building agencies, where it's everyone is EOM. We know that that's not real. And what I'd say is, we have there's already there's an ongoing capital project for directory services modernization that works to clean that up, and that project is it's underway right now. So we'll be working that out. But Eric, I'm sorry, that problem will continue until we close that project.
Well, that's still good to know, though. It's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
that's definitely good to know. That's interesting. I guess that explains. I have seen some newer folks at DemPed that they say their emails in like have a DemPed instead of an EOM. I never really like gave thought to why that is. You know, they'll still show up if we do the searches and stuff for them. But that's great to hear that at least it's underway.
Kyle, did you still have a question? I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I was going to mention it. I think one thing that's nice about this group is that I think from the start, there's the assumption that all of these different players need to be involved. So it's good that Stephen and all these different perspectives are involved. But also for the retention policy, really briefly, I think the idea really would be just to keep it really short. And then if there's an exception, it's like, oh, this project is going off of the rails. You add an exception, you save that data longer, right? So in general, you keep it for 10 years, and you can always add, you can keep data protection on specific, under specific business needs. But I was also going to ask, because I'm not familiar enough with DC's specific policies, what is DC doing for proactive disclosures, right? If you've got a big backlog of asks, right, FOIA requests, is that because you're not disclosing enough information so the public can find it for themselves, or what's going on there?
I think that sometimes that can be an issue. I know we receive, lots of requests for a particular, like, we've sued Facebook or Google or whoever, and we'll receive maybe 10 to 15 requests for the exact same information. Typically, we'll put a press release on our website and it links to the pleadings, but sometimes people want more information. And I think it's kind of trying to find a happy medium about what should go out and what shouldn't go out. But it's a slow process kind of getting there.
DC has an eFOIA provision. It's 2-536 that lists something like 10 or 12 categories of information every agency is supposed to have on its website. And I don't think there is any agency that even comes close to 50% of the information they're supposed to have. And most are far below that.
That's a budget issue, I think. It's a budget
issue. DCRA claimed that it's, and OAH, Office of Administrative Hearings, claimed that their information systems were not up to doing that. But they have never put in a request for the capital funds to upgrade their systems. And so it is a budgetary thing, but it's a budgetary thing that everybody's ignoring, rather than saying, well, we need to spend money, we're going to do it and get it done. We have now had that provision since 2000. It was in the amendments that the council enacted in 2000. And no agency is anywhere close.
Yeah, so I mean, those provisions exist for very good reasons. I would say my recommendation, just personally, would be to do some analysis of the FOIA requests that you have and that you're getting, and if there's a specific business area or office that's getting specific requests, like you need building project information, or whatever, gets a lot of requests, just publish that information proactively at the beginning of the month, and then just let it be there so that you don't have to get the FOIA requests, because then you're opening yourself up to lawsuits and everything else. So that's the point of proactive.
Yeah. In fact, FOIA Express provides a reading room for every agency that uses it. And my understanding at the beginning was that when a request was responded to, the information that was disclosed was supposed to go in the reading room, but I doubt that any agency is doing that.
Oh, I thought that was how it was supposed to be. It just happened. So I guess that's something we can look into.
Nicole may have an answer to that, but I don't think anybody's really using it.
No, people aren't really using it. But the opendata.dc.gov was supposed to somewhat replace that, and that people should be sending data sets of their responses to Octo to put on that site. But yeah, the reading room is not really used, but the hope was that the open data site would take up that responsibility.
But how, if I make a request for letters, let's say, from some agency about an issue, how does the data set end up solving the problem of disclosing that generally to the public because it's been requested. I'm not sure I understand how one substitutes for the other in that situation.
Yeah, I
I can
don't think
defer to
one
Stephen.
substitutes. Yeah, I don't think one substitutes for the other. So it is,
A supplement, maybe.
it's a supplement. Yeah. So the open data portal, opendata.dc.gov. I can plug that 1,000 times a day. Opendata.dc.gov is every year we go through a cycle with agencies around our enterprise data inventory to bring in additional data in there. Some of what is discovered may have come up during other FOIA requests. Not everything that we discover in the enterprise data inventory is something that can be open for the public, but we do make a push for it to at least be classified as either readily available for the public or readily available for agencies to prepare for the public, 0 or 1. And yeah, I think, Bob, you're right. Like, it's not opendata.dc.gov is not a place for like letters. It's a place for data sets. So if there is, if the request is for an Excel spreadsheet with 10,000 rows, I mean, that's a data set theoretically, and we could post that in that open data portal. And what I would say is I am definitely actively trying to work out how we can either utilize or replace the reading room. There's discussions, like we have talked about this, and I'm aware that it's on Nikel's radar a lot.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I was thinking that maybe, Bob, we can talk about one agency, maybe a DCRA, like you mentioned, and like maybe trying to work with them, because I know there's a lot of frustration with the public with information regarding DCRA, and I know they have a bunch of different programs and they're doing their best, but maybe that's like a side project. Maybe we can try and go and talk to them over there and see if we can assist or something like that. First of all, I have to tell you guys, I'm always nervous before I do these, and I have like my script, and I feel like I don't know a lot about it, which I don't, but I feel like our meetings now are just I think they feel very welcoming, and it's fun, and we can learn, and then we can kind of come up with practical solutions that a group like us can do in advice. And I appreciate Bob taking all the picking on that I do of him, but it's all in great admiration. And the fact that he can kind of say things that are not really that would help us in government and what we do. It's really helpful. And separately, I know in my real job, which is Deputy Director of the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel, there's a lot of what's the word? Aggravation, anxiety, annoyance about the our appeals that we handle. I'm looking at that now and how we can try and make it more efficient. I'm not going to make the excuses that it's worth, there's no bandwidth or there's a little bandwidth. It is our responsibility, but it's one of many. And I would appreciate any recommendations of what we can do there. And I will tell you, I'm going to start working on that more deeply this summer. So maybe if you have any ideas or any questions, I'd appreciate it. So thank you everyone for making this a success. It makes the government look good, I think, and at least all of us. And so thank you. I'm going to, just so you know, kind of do a little bullet point or draft up, me and Julia, with kind of what we talked about today and what we come across as like maybe possible advice. We could put an advisory opinion to the mayor, which we could use, anybody, could use it or put in. So, and then we'll look that over in the next meeting, but then also we can talk about other topics or other issues. I personally, and I don't know if this is wrong, like, I don't like the fact that if there's litigation against the district and it's going through discovery quabbles, that all of a sudden there's a FOIA request for the information that's being, discussed. Something that we could toll, showing proof of a lawsuit over this. It's a lot of efforts. And It doesn't protect maybe attorney-client confidentialities and things might fall through. So if everybody would just poke that, like keep that in their head, because that drives me crazy. So that
Just
said,
a quick note on that, Vanessa. So that was was a policy change, because under Peter Nichols, if it was in litigation, we didn't process any FOIA requests.
okay.
And then it switched over under Gray to, we had to release it regardless if the litigation was pending,
And I would just say that I can understand you're saying you won't, if a litigant is asked for it in discovery, they shouldn't get it in under FOIA, but a record merely because some litigant might get it in discovery shouldn't be off limits to anybody else in the district who might need that information during the time the litigation is going on. And I think that has happened sometimes where the court has, the agency has said, well, we're in litigation with somebody over this, therefore you who need it for a legitimate purpose elsewhere can't have it.
That's a good point. I was thinking in my experience, someone like looking for information regarding like they're suing the district and they were a former employee. They want everything that all their bosses said, like stuff that goes, the normal litigation stuff. But maybe that's a way we can narrow it, Bob. But we can table that and like put that in our next discussion. I just think it would duplicate efforts. So the other thing I wanted to kind of end it is our next meeting. I think that meeting virtually is very helpful, considering we can record all this and everything and more people can join in. So if you would like to talk about if anybody in the next meeting, we could talk, if you want to go back to meeting in person, we can discuss that. I mean, I think this works really well for the reasons that I just stated. So we'll provide notice of our next meeting. But what do you guys think? Is the summer a problem? I mean, government still needs to be open during the summer, but what do you think? I mean, like, we don't close. What is it crazy to say July? What did you say, Julia, 26th?
Yeah, I proposed July 26th, which would be just about a month from today. We were slightly behind due to the previous holiday, and so then it was kind of like a cascading piece. I know August is notoriously not good for folks.
Lots of people go away in August.
Yeah, in our neck of the woods. So I was thinking July. And if there's a common consensus that July 26th, if your schedule can accommodate this date, then we'll go ahead and schedule it. But if you guys feel that that's not a good day or it's not going to work, then we can just resume in the fall, which would be September. But we would do it still prior to the end of the fiscal year. So
I'm okay with July 26th.
Yeah, I'm fine with July 26th, and I agree, Vanessa, that virtual is helpful. It increases the chances we can get a quorum and can do work, right?
Yes. So how about we're going to shoot for the 26th, and if everybody could just either respond, like you can make it or not, then we kind of take it from there. But I want to keep us rolling on this. So Julia will send that out. I want to, personally thank you all for doing this, and please reach out to me if you think I can do it better, or I said something wrong, or I pick on Bob too much. But I think that's how
nobody's going to disagree with you on that.
That's sorry, Bob. You just said
what about Bob? Come on.
Yeah, sorry. That's just how it's going. You are our muse, Bob, and we just want to keep it going. So I really like this. So
I want a pay raise then.
Okay, fine.
Hazardous duty.
I do think if we actually get anything advisory to the mayor, we're all going out for like dinner somewhere, and so I'm also putting that up. So let me say the time is 2:01. And thank you again. This fantastic meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Okay.
Well
Bye.
done.
Bye.
Well done.
Take care, everybody. Okay, bye-bye.